To discuss the Coalition's broadband plans further, Liberal MP Paul Fletcher joins me now from Canberra. Paul Fletcher, thanks for joining me. Now, you do have a lot of techie experience. How will the Coalition policy contribute to national productivity gains?
Thanks, Helen. It's a pleasure to be with you. Can I just start with that grab you've just shown from the 7:30 report? Because it was very disappointing that the ABC did not disclose, when they quoted Professor Rod Tucker, that Professor Rod Tucker was on Stephen Conroy's original expert panel, and that Stephen Conroy opened the centre at Melbourne University that Professor Rod Tucker now leads. So for Kerry O'Brien on the 7:30 report... So you're saying he has no credibility? I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that he is a strong supporter of fibre, and that's fine. But for Professor Rod Tucker to be cited as an objective commentator on the Coalition's proposal, I think is highly regrettable, and the ABC, I think, has some explaining to do. Now, to your question about productivity, we are strong believers in broadband, and one of the things that we want to do is ensure that there is a reasonable speed available, and available to premises within the first 97%. So that's why we are using a significant amount of wireless network to be able to deliver, at minimum, a 12 megabit per second peak speed.
Right, so how does that contribute to productivity improvements?
Because one of the key issues about productivity is ensuring that as many people as possible can get broadband. Today, lots of people can't get broadband. In metropolitan areas, there are many people who can't get DSL, which is the most common form of broadband, because, for example, their line is impeded by so-called DSL blockers, such as pair gain systems. That's why in our policy we've got $750 million for fixed broadband optimisation, and that will fund things like removing pair gain blockers, so a lot of people who today cannot get DSL, for example in outer metropolitan areas and indeed in rural and remote areas, will be able to get it once that money is expended. And then in addition, what we are doing is providing $1 billion of funding for rural and remote broadband wireless networks, and additional $1 billion of concessional investment funding for wireless networks in metropolitan Australia. And this is about fixing the black spots and making sure there is a baseline broadband speed available to all premises within the first 97%. And we're doing it in an affordable and responsible way, and most importantly, we're doing it in a way in which the private sector will have a key role.
All right, Paul Fletcher, can I just interrupt you there and sort of take you to a few of those points? You're saying your policy really relies more on getting the private sector to do things. Now, if the private sector was so good at doing things, why are those black spots still there? We have had, you know, people from the bush particularly pushing the companies to do a lot more for them, and they still haven't delivered.
And Helen, the Coalition has consistently stated that we will provide government funding in areas of market failure, and when it comes to broadband, that includes rural and remote. You're quite right. In general, commercial companies have found it difficult to make the economics work of providing broadband in rural and remote Australia. That's why the Coalition had the OPEL plan. Well, they've really failed
so far, haven't they?
Well, if I can just finish, Helen, that's why the Coalition had the OPEL plan in 2007 with a contract signed to deliver broadband, and that would have been in place now if Stephen Conroy hadn't cancelled it in early 2008 for political reasons. And so what we are doing is providing up to $1 billion of grant funding to allow companies to provide wireless services in rural Australia with our funding, together with funding that they provide, and we will select the companies to do that based upon a competitive selection process. Now, just this afternoon, Austar, which is the major regional pay television company, which also owns significant wireless spectrum, issued a press release noting that their spectrum, which they hold in the 2.3 gigahertz and 3.5 gigahertz bands, would be ideally suited to this network. And we expect there will be a wide range of players who will have a significant interest in putting forward proposals to operate wireless networks in rural and regional Australia and in metropolitan Australia.
All right, Paul Fletcher, would you agree, though, that wireless just cannot deliver the sort of depth of uses that people and businesses are crying out for now?
Well, Helen, let's just look at this question. What we're really asking is, what is the incremental benefit you get for 100 megabits per second over 12 megabits per second? Let me make a couple of points. Firstly, many people today can already get 100 megabits per second over the HFC network. That's the hybrid fibre coax network, which is operated by Telstra in the 5 major cities and Optus in the 3 major cities. Telstra is already at 100 megabits per second in Melbourne. Optus has just upgraded to 70 megabits per second. And so there is already significant availability of high-speed broadband. The Labor government has asserted that it is vital that we get everybody to 100 megabits per second, and that it's so vital that we must spend $43 billion of taxpayers' money on that objective.
All right,
but we've seen no, just let me make this point. We've seen no cost-benefit study. We have seen no cost-benefit study. We have seen no justification from Labor as to why ubiquitous 100 megabits per second broadband is so much better than any other speed.
All right, Paul Fletcher, let me ask you this. Obviously, the coalition policy is completely rejecting the government's supposed the policy about broadband there. But your old employer, Optus, has come out and basically criticised your policy today, saying it just won't deliver fast enough speeds.
Look, I don't criticise any private sector player, including Optus, for being attracted to the possibility that government is going to spend $43 billion to give them a huge free kick.
No, but
the reality
you accept
is,
that you, when you were at Optus, you would have argued for exactly the same thing if you were still there now, and you would have been pushing for the government's broadband plan?
The reality is that as the alternative government, the coalition is determined to deliver value for money to taxpayers, and the question we are asking is, what is the affordable and responsible way to deliver a reasonable broadband speed that is available to all Australians who need it? Now, it is not responsible to spend $43 billion, 100% taxpayer funded. Let's remember, when Kevin Rudd and Stephen Conroy announced their plan in April 2009, they claimed there would be significant private sector investment. Fast forward a year, their implementation study says, oh no, taxpayer should pay 100% of it. So the taxpayer, under Labor's plan, is taking a huge risk on a particular technology, fibre to the premises.
You've made this point, Paul Fletcher. I just want to sort of ask you about your own position, because you, as I mentioned at the beginning, you are a tech head. You do know what you're talking about in many ways.
Well, I'm actually a lawyer, just to be clear.
I know, you graduated with first-class honours in economics and law, but in your book recently, only recently published, you said there are endless possibilities that will come Australia's way and will benefit Australia economically with a much faster broadband plan. So,
and let's be clear. Let's be clear. I am a supporter of faster broadband. The coalition is a supporter of faster broadband. We just don't think it's a good idea for the taxpayer to pay to go to 100 megabits per second when we've never seen the cost-benefit study and the justification of doing that.
All right, but just a few years ago you would have been a proponent of the government's plan to provide much faster broadband than your plan, which is 12 megabits a second.
Well, Helen, this really isn't about me, but that is not, in fact, an accurate statement of my position. And my book makes it clear I'm a supporter of broadband and faster broadband, but we must have justification provided. And I think the policy we've announced today is an outstanding policy, because what it does is it provides government funding for areas of market failure and also delivers a structural change in the broadband market, particularly in backhaul. Backhaul is extremely important in terms of allowing broadband to be delivered in outside of metropolitan Australia. We're going to break the broadband, the backhaul bottleneck by putting $2.75 billion of public money and expecting to leverage another $750 million of private money to deliver 60 to 70,000 kilometres of fibre backhaul.
Paul Fletcher, we do appreciate you coming in to explain all that. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to take a short break. Do be back with PM Agenda Late Edition in a moment.